They called it untouchable, a brand draped in heritage, cloaked in exclusivity, and shielded by myth. Hermès wasn't just selling bags, it was selling a fantasy. For decades, billionaires lined up on wait lists, fashion editors whispered its name like scripture, and customers were told that every Birkin and Kelly came straight from the hands of elite French artisans. But now, that mystique is cracking. And the first fracture? It came from a blurry 11-second TikTok posted halfway across the world. In a single clip, a Chinese factory worker casually exposes what the luxury world never wanted you to see. Rows of half-finished designer bags, whispered names of global brands, and a jaw-dropping claim that half of Louis Vuitton's bags and nearly all of its silk come from Chinese towns no one's ever heard of. Even Hermès, the last bastion of handmade prestige, is being dragged into the scandal. One bag, labeled Type Z01 Orange Export, looks suspiciously like a Birkin, but costs just $200 to produce, labor, materials, and shipping included. For a brand that charges $20,000 and up, that's not just a markup, it's a myth imploding. This is the story the fashion elite hoped would never reach you. The story of how the luxury industry's biggest secret spilled onto social media, turning decades of branding into dust. And if this is happening to Hermès and Louis Vuitton, what else is the industry hiding? Subscribe now, because what comes next will change the way you see every Made in France label forever. At first, it seemed like a joke, a TikTok video, a few laughs, maybe some internet clout. But the comments told a different story, one that luxury brands didn't want going viral. Viewers weren't just reacting, they were naming names. Factories in Shandong and Jiangsu were being linked to Hermès, Chanel, even IKEA. High-end men's shoes, tableware, silk accessories, all allegedly traced back to China's underground manufacturing empire. And the most chilling part? These weren't knockoffs. These were the same factories rumored to be supplying the real thing. Then came the receipts. Users demanded investigations, and content creators delivered. They filmed inside Hermès boutiques in places like Highland Park, zooming in on product tags and interrogating staff. Made in Italy? Or China? What are we really buying? The answers were vague, the labels inconsistent, and the mystery only deepened. That's when everything blew open. Factory workers began posting videos from the production line, cutting crocodile leather, stitching silk, embossing logos with surgical precision. No logos were blurred, no hands were shaking. These weren't counterfeits. They looked identical to the real deal. Suddenly, luxury's best-kept secret wasn't so secret anymore. The illusion of European exclusivity was collapsing in real time, and the internet wasn't just watching, it was digging deeper. This exposé isn't just about Hermès. It's about the entire luxury industry and how much of it has been built on smoke and mirrors. Stick around, because what's coming next will make you question every luxury label you've ever trusted. Some workers didn't even bother hiding their faces. In one viral clip, a wall of handbags marked with an unmistakable H sits behind a smiling factory worker. Each bag has a French-style serial number, carefully tagged. The worker smirks and says it plainly: "We make them better than Paris." That one sentence detonated across fashion circles. It wasn't just speculation anymore. People had receipts. Fashion YouTubers pounced. They slowed the TikToks down frame by frame, comparing stitching, leather folds, zipper placements. And what they found was alarming. Bags made in Chinese factories looked identical to authenticated Hermès pieces sold on verified resale platforms. One viral analysis even matched a supposedly exclusive Birkin from the resale market to footage of the same model mid-production in a Guangdong factory. The stitching, the cuts, the structure, it was all the same. And that's where the illusion starts to unravel. Take the Hermès Kelly, a bag that's marketed as the peak of European craftsmanship. It's supposed to require 30 separate cuts of leather, over 20 hours of hand labor, and 4 hours just to assemble the handle. No manuals, no blueprints. Just years of artisan muscle memory. At least, that's what Hermès claims. But what happens when a factory in South China replicates it down to the last stitch? Stick around, because what's coming next will make you question everything you thought luxury meant. But what if that sacred process Hermès swore by was never sacred at all. What if the legacy of handcrafted perfection, the myth of artisans in quiet Parisian workshops, was quietly outsourced to anonymous factories thousands of miles away? When that question hit the internet, people didn't just pause, they exploded. Because if the bags weren't built in France, then the illusion Hermès sold for decades wasn't just fragile, it was fake. This wasn't just a brand getting caught. This was betrayal. Hermès didn't just market luxury, they built a religion around it. Each stitch was supposed to represent time, tradition, and exclusivity. A waiting list wasn't an inconvenience, it was a rite of passage. But then came the receipts. Whispers that up to 80% of made-in-France bags were being assembled in ghost factories overseas. Suddenly, that mystique wasn't rare. It was mass-produced. And then came the quote that lit the fire. Carefully handcrafted in China. Not on a billboard, not in a press release, but buried in a viral TikTok, filmed on a dusty factory floor. That video triggered an internet inferno. What started as a single post became a global investigation. Shoppers stormed Hermès boutiques, influencers zoomed in on bag tags, and resale collectors questioned everything they owned. The brand's silence? Deafening. Then, the next shockwave hit. Reports that Hermès quietly slashed prices worldwide in the wake of the scandal. No formal statement, no grand announcement. Just a quiet cut that felt less like strategy and more like surrender. For a brand that prided itself on never budging, never discounting, never cracking under pressure, the message was clear. The fortress had been breached. And what's inside? That's what this video is about. What came next didn't just rattle Hermès, it sent shockwaves through the entire luxury industry. TikTok transformed into a digital courtroom, and creators became the jury. One viral user took it to the extreme, dissecting luxury handbags on camera, slicing through leather, hardware, and lining with surgical precision. "I've spent over $100,000 on luxury bags," he said. "Why? Because I had to find out what we were really paying for." As the video racked up millions of views, Hermès tried to fight back. Their response? A sleek, highly produced factory showcase, artisans hammering hardware, threading leather, burnishing edges with flawless care. It was everything their brand promised: tradition, skill, craftsmanship. But TikTok wasn't buying it. Viewers slowed the footage, zoomed in, and crunched the numbers for themselves. Then came the math that cracked the illusion. One user calculated the true cost behind a $38,000 boutique Birkin. Materials, labor, and logistics totaled barely $400. "That's not luxury," a top comment read. "That's legalized larceny." Suddenly, the iconic bag wasn't a symbol of status. It was a receipt for a masterclass in markup. The backlash spread fast. The comments were ruthless. The questions got louder. And the feeling that echoed across every platform was the same. People felt played. Because if one of the world's most exclusive fashion houses could be this hollow behind the curtain, what other lies were luxury brands still hiding? That's the question this video is going to answer. One TikTok stitched the now infamous factory video with a ruthless caption. "This is why your rent's late. This is why your credit card's maxed. You didn't buy a bag, you bought a fantasy, and it scammed you." 14 million views in just 3 days. YouTube followed with a wave of viral titles. Hermès exposed, 40K bags made for pennies, and luxury lies you still believe and still pay for. The luxury illusion wasn't just cracking, it was collapsing. Finance creators joined in, calling Hermès the Theranos of fashion. Then Wall Street blinked. Hermès stock plummeted, losing billions in market value in a single afternoon. Hedge funds began offloading luxury shares like they were radioactive. Analysts downgraded LVMH, Gucci, and Chanel overnight, terrified that even bigger exposés were waiting in the shadows. The luxury sector wasn't just under fire, it was in free fall. Then the anger spilled offline. In Hong Kong, protesters allegedly assembled outside Hermès boutiques, waving hand-painted signs that read, "Greed in Orange." One influencer was photographed tossing her Kelly bag into a trash bin, shouting, "I'm done with heritage lies." Global backlash surged. And inside Hermes's Paris headquarters, an emergency board meeting was reportedly called in response to the chaos. What happened next stunned the industry. Hermès, arguably the most elite name in fashion, allegedly approved a sweeping price drop, up to 30% off, globally. For some, it felt like a white flag. For others, it was the clearest sign yet. The myth of handcrafted, rare luxury was officially broken. Either way, the move was unprecedented. Because once a luxury brand starts slashing prices, the spell is broken. And in China, the unraveling was impossible to ignore. Just a year ago, Hermès's Shanghai flagship on Nanjing Road was the crown jewel of retail decadence. Lines curled around the block. Champagne flowed inside velvet-roped VIP sections. Armed guards protected shoppers like heads of state. Getting your hands on a Birkin was like winning the fashion lottery. Now, that same boutique is seeing walkouts. Social media in China is flooded with exposé threads and factory receipts. Customers are demanding answers. And the question at the center of it all, what exactly are people paying for when they buy luxury? This video dives into the receipts, the leaks, and the real story Hermès doesn't want you to hear. Now, silence. Hermès boutiques that once buzzed with exclusivity fell eerily quiet. Store traffic in China plunged by 50% in just 2 weeks. Sales associates stood idle. And for the first time in 5 years, some locations reportedly missed their daily revenue targets. Behind the glass walls, the whispers turned into roars. Chinese luxury consumers are done playing dress-up for Western brands that mock them behind closed doors. Inside Hermès, panic wasn't brewing. It was boiling. An alleged emergency earnings call laid bare the internal chaos. The CFO reportedly admitted, "We've lost control of the narrative." The brand that once turned silence into mystique had become the internet's loudest scandal. Their response? More discounts. First in Asia, then Europe, then the US. The objective was clear. Slow the exodus. Hold on to elite clients. But reputational damage wasn't the only thing unraveling. This was a brand built on legacy. And now, that legacy was starting to rot. For Gen Z and millennial shoppers, the future of luxury, this wasn't just a scandal. It was a betrayal, a wake-up call. Internally, Hermès executives allegedly delivered a blunt warning. If we don't act now, our brand equity dies in 6 months. But the death blow didn't come from within. It came from the stars who helped build the Hermès myth. Cardi B quietly deleted her Instagram photo of her rainbow Birkin wall. Kim Kardashian issued a vague statement. She's reviewing brand partnerships. Victoria Beckham abruptly canceled a major Hermès pop-up appearance. The message was unmistakable. Nobody wanted to be the face of fashion fraud. And as celebrity support collapsed, so did the resale market. A mint-condition Birkin that once resold for double the price? Now it's tanking. StockX listings bled red arrows. Vestiaire Collective showed a 45% price crash overnight. Even auction houses hit pause on major Hermès events, terrified the market would implode. The collapse wasn't just visible, it was financial. Luxury wasn't untouchable anymore. It was fragile, exposed. Investors began pressing for answers. Meanwhile, luxury competitors scrambled. Louis Vuitton quietly trimmed prices across Asia. Gucci offered hush-hush rebates in private WeChat groups. Even Rolex, long a symbol of indestructible value, started lowering dealer premiums in Hong Kong. Industry analysts issued a grim warning. If another whistleblower steps forward, this entire sector could face a margin apocalypse. Because Hermès's global price cuts didn't feel like strategy anymore. They looked like a surrender, and worse, like the first shot in a full-scale luxury price war, one that the industry isn't prepared to fight. This exposé dives into what Hermès doesn't want the world to see: factory receipts, influencer fallout, and a scandal that just might bring down the fashion elite. Where does that leave the house of Hermès? Slashing prices might buy them time, maybe a quarter or two, but the illusion that held everything together is gone. The mystique, the waitlists, the mythology that a Birkin is worth more than your car. It only worked because people believed it was sacred. Now, that belief has been shattered. The internet's seen the factories, the receipts, the TikToks, and the truth is out. the emperor's scarf costs $18 to weave, and the so-called handcrafted luxury can be mass-produced in a Guangdong warehouse. What's worse, there's no turning back. In the world of luxury, trust is everything. And once it's broken, no ad campaign can stitch it back together. Not even Hermès, with all its prestige, can hide behind soft lighting and silent ateliers anymore. Because this isn't just about one bag, it's about an entire brand mythology unraveling in real time. The narrative of craftsmanship, exclusivity, and heritage has collided with the raw, unfiltered truth of viral exposés and factory floor footage. If Hermès wants to survive, it needs more than damage control. It needs transformation. Radical transparency isn't optional anymore. Consumers want to know everything. Where were the bags really made? How much were the workers paid? What are the real margins behind that $38,000 price tag? Gen Z and young millennials aren't just buying logos, they're buying values. And if luxury wants their loyalty, it has to start speaking their language. Because if Hermès doesn't tell that story, TikTok will. The new generation isn't fooled by velvet ropes or champagne showrooms. They want receipts. They want truth. And if legacy brands don't step up, there's an army of creators, investigators, and whistleblowers ready to do it for them. The age of blind prestige is over. The age of accountability has just begun. Hermès can no longer hide behind the old excuses of exclusivity and craftsmanship. People aren't interested in a $40,000 price tag just because a bag is rare. They want to know the real story. Why the worker stitching that bag earns less than a day's wage, while the brand rakes in millions. Without clear, honest answers, Hermès isn't just risking its profits, it's risking its entire place in the luxury world. The future of luxury is shifting. It won't be built on crocodile skins, silk scarves, or velvet ropes. It will be built on transparency, ethics, and values that can withstand the harsh light of public scrutiny. Hermès, with all its history and prestige, now stands at a critical crossroads. Keep clinging to the fantasy of untouchable luxury, or rewrite its narrative entirely, because the truth brought to light by Chinese manufacturers didn't just expose where Hermès bags are made, it tore down the veil over the entire luxury industry. The spell is broken, the illusion shattered, the stage show is over, and the world is watching to see what comes next. So here's the question for viewers. Will Hermès rise from this scandal stronger and more transparent, or will it be remembered as the emperor of handbags undone by a phone camera? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. And if you want to keep uncovering the hidden truths behind the luxury world's biggest secrets, don't forget to subscribe and hit the bell, because the next exposé is already brewing.